Türkiye Araştırmaları Vakfı ve Institute of Global Affairs'ın ortaklaşa düzenlediği Türk ve Yunan Medya ve Akademi Forumu'na hoş geldiniz. Açılış konuşmasını yapmak üzere Türkiye Araştırmaları Vakfı Başkan Yardımcısı Enes Bayraklı hocamı kürsüye davet ediyorum.
Kıymetli misafirlerimiz, Yunanistan'dan gelen misafirlerimiz, hepinize hoş geldiniz diyoruz. Yunanistan'dan gelen misafirlerimize İstanbul'a hoş geldiniz diyoruz. Yabancı bir ülkeye gelmediniz. Burada zaten Türkiye'ye geldiğiniz zaman Türkiye'den de Yunanistan'a gidenlerin hepsi ortak kültüre, ortak birçok noktaya dikkat çekiyorlar. Aslında birbirine yabancı iki toplum değiliz. Onu birçoğumuz bu konuları çalışan biliyoruz. Dolayısıyla hepinize tekrar hoş geldiniz diyoruz. Tabii Türkiye Araştırmaları Vakfı yeni kurulan, yaklaşık bir yıl önce kurulan bir düşünce kuruluşu. Genç ve dinamik bir ekibimiz var. Özellikle think tank dünyasında ciddi tecrübesi olan bir ekibimiz var. Dolayısıyla temel amacımız Türkiye merkezli bir düşünce kuruluşu olmak. Ve Türkiye'nin sorunlarına Türkiye'den bakarak çözümler üretmek, bunları analiz etmek ve ortaya koymak ve olabildiğince de pozitif bir gündem ve ajandayla Türkiye'ye elimizden gelen olumlu katkıyı yapmak. Bu noktada tabii Türk dış politikasının gündemi çok geniş. Neredeyse coğrafyamızın tamamında ciddi askeri çatışmalar söz konusu. En son Gazze'de, Filistin'de yaşanan olayları hepimiz endişeyle takip ediyoruz. Dolayısıyla Türkiye'nin bu konuda gündemi çok yoğun, çok hızlı. Hatta ben Avusturya'da eğitim hayatımı tamamladım. Orada belki bir senede tartışılan meseleyi Türkiye'de biz bir haftada tartışıyoruz. Böyle çok hızlı bir gündemi olan bir ülkeyiz. Bu açıdan tabii dış politikamızda demin de bahsettiğim krizler söz konusu ve uluslararası sistem ciddi bir sınamadan geçiyor. Krizler gün geçtikçe çoğalıyor. Eskiden donmuş olan çatışma bölgelerinin tekrar sıcak hale geldiğini, çatışmaların arttığını görüyoruz. Bu noktada tabii Türk-Yunan ilişkilerinde ciddi problemlerin olduğunu hepimiz biliyoruz. Bunlar yadsınamaz, inkar edilemez gerçekler. Ege'den tutun da işte Doğu Akdeniz'e, işte azınlıklardaki ilgili sorunlara kadar ciddi sorunlar var. Ve bunlar zaman zaman ikili ülke arasındaki ilişkilerde ciddi ilişkilerin gerilmesine neden oldu geçmişte. Fakat şunu da tespit etmek lazım. İki ülkeye de hak vermek lazım. İki ülkeye de daha doğrusu iki ülkenin yöneticilerini de belki de tebrik etmek lazım. Bunun hiçbir zaman sıcak bir çatışmaya dönmesine de müsaade edilmedi. Bir şekilde yönetildiğini de görüyoruz. Dolayısıyla ama tabii ki de iki ülke bunun ötesine geçebilecek bir potansiyele her zaman için sahip. Onu da görüyoruz. Dolayısıyla bunu gerçekleştirebilmek için tabii ki mikro alanda çalışmalar yapılması gerekiyor. Sadece siyaset alanı yüksek politika alanından ibaret değil. Yüksek politika alanını besleyen aslında kültürel alanda, akademi alanında, medya alanında ciddi bir mesai harcanması gerekiyor. İşte bu alanda nasıl bir pozitif katkı yapabiliriz düşüncesiyle bu etkinliği Atina merkezli Institute of Global Affairs ile birlikte organize ettik. Ben kendilerine teşekkür ediyorum bize verdikleri katkıdan dolayı. Dolayısıyla burada bugün öncelikle medya alanında nasıl bir işbirliği gerçekleştirilebilir, bu ajandaya nasıl bir pozitif katkı sağlanabilir onu tartışacağız. İkinci bölümde de akademisyenlerimiz, her iki ülkenin akademisyenleri de akademi alanında hangi pozitif projeler geliştirilebilir bunu tartışacaklar. Bu programdan önce de bir kapalı çalıştay yaptık. Orada da gayet verimli geçti. Çok somut öneriler ortaya konuldu. Ve biz bu programı devam ettirmek istiyoruz. Bir sonrakini Atina'da gerçekleştirmek istiyoruz. Ondan sonra da kurumsallaştırıp bunu sürdürmek istiyoruz önümüzdeki dönemlerde. Çünkü biliyorsunuz bu alanlarda sadece bir kere etkinlik yapmak hiçbir zaman yeterli değil. Kurumsallaştırmak, sürekli kıldıktan sonra ancak bir etki yaratabiliyorsunuz. Ben hepinize tek tek teşekkür ediyorum. Katıldığınız için, vaktinizi ayırdığınız için. Tekrardan misafirlerimize hoş geldiniz diyorum. Sağ olun, var olun.
İlk oturumda Türk-Yunan ilişkilerinde medyanın rolünü tartışmak üzere konuşmacılarımızı yerlerine davet ediyorum.
Evet, tekrardan hoş geldiniz diyorum ve ilk panelimizi başlatıyoruz. Tabii ilk panelimizde iki ülkeden de çok kıymetli gazeteci misafirlerimiz bizimle beraber. Öncelikle ben kendilerini tanıtmak istiyorum. Öncelikle Aimilios, Perdikaris, Atina Haber Ajansı'nın genel koordinatörü, genel direktörü. Atina Haber Ajansı aslında Türkiye'deki Anadolu Ajansı'nın Yunanistan'daki muadili. Dolayısıyla Atina özellikle Yunanistan'daki medya alanında çok etkili tabii bir kuruluş. İkinci olarak Yusuf Özhan Bey bizimle beraber. Yusuf Özhan Bey kendisi Anadolu Ajansı'nın Genel Müdür Yardımcısı. Kendisine hoş geldin diyoruz. Yine Alexis Papahelas bizimle birlikte. Kathimerini gazetesinin editörü. Yine bu gazetede Yunanistan'da çok ciddi geçmişi olan ve İngilizce yayın yapan bir gazete. Dolayısıyla Yunanistan'da ciddi etkili medya kuruluşlarından birisi belirtmek gerekiyor. Ve yine Bora Bey bizimle birlikte Bora Bayraktar, TRT Bold'un kanal koordinatörü. TRT Bold'da özellikle son 10 yıl mı oldu hocam başlayalı yine? 8 yıldır İngilizce alanında Türkiye'nin sesini dünyaya duyuran TRT'nin önemli girişimlerinden birisi. Bora Bey de uluslararası alanda çok tecrübeli gazetecilerimizden bir tanesi. Ben hepsine tek tek teşekkür ediyorum bugün bizimle birlikte oldukları için. Şimdi ben öncelikle tabii ki misafirlerimizle başlamak istiyorum. Ben Atina Haber Ajansı Genel Müdürü Aimilios Perdikaris Bey'e sözü vermek istiyorum. Söz sizin, buyurunuz efendim.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and the very important initiative here in Istanbul. I think that we are all pleased to be here because it's a good chance for both of us, for both sides, to show to the public opinion that we can work together, we can understand each other, and apart from some things that traditionally in politics or in diplomacy are dividing us, we can find a common way, we can find a way to work together, to discuss, to respect each other, and cooperate in a way in such fields like what we call, what we used to call law politics. For example, there are some things like climate change. This is a very important thing that refers to both countries, it refers to the Mediterranean region as well. We had some physical disasters last years. Both countries suffered from these disasters. The earthquake in Turkey last February, the wildfires in Greece last summer, immigration as well. There are fields, there are issues, we can work together and we can present these things to the public opinion of both countries in a way that unite us and not divide us. Let's leave these things for later, let's leave difficult things and find a positive agenda we can discuss today as well in our discussion, I think.
Thank you very much. Şimdi ben sözü Yusuf Özhan Bey'e vermek istiyorum. Anadolu Ajansı. Yusuf Bey, özellikle Türk-Yunan ilişkilerinde aslında çalıştayda da konuştuk. İkili ilişkilerde özellikle iki ajansın da ciddi bir işbirliği geliştirdiğini de söylediniz. Aslında ben bu kadar derin bir işbirliği olduğunu da bilmiyordum. Dolayısıyla aslında ciddi bir sürecinde yürüdüğünü de öğrenmiş olduk. Dolayısıyla bu alanda neler yapıyorsunuz ve nasıl bir örnek olabilir diğer basın kuruluşlarına? Söz sizin, buyurunuz.
Teşekkür ederim. Ben İngilizce devam etmek istiyorum. Just as you mentioned, two news agencies have been working together for maybe decades, right? Not only during our time with our news agencies at the administration, but before that, also we were sharing the same platforms with each other. So that brings us a great advantage over how to overcome the future obstacles and challenges. But we are journalists, and we are trying to lead our army of journalists. And that is, by the way, we are not crossing each other's ways very much often, because we are trying to deal with all the news information around the world. But only maybe 5% of our news coverage are related to the issues related to two countries. But when it comes to this, still things can easily arise. But let me just put it differently. News agency journalism is greatly different from broadcast journalism or print media journalism, because the sentiments or the ideas or our imagination or commentary leads the headlines with broadcast journalism and print media, because the public asks them to produce something. So journalists are also great commentators, that is beyond any doubt, of course, but the rest are news agency journalism. So most of the newsrooms today are understaffed. So most of the TV stations or newspapers have shrunk over the last 10 years or so. So agency journalism's burden over its shoulders has greatly increased. That is actually going to be making our future moves even more important. So thanks to our good relations with all the news agencies around the world, not only the Greek news agency, but our particular relationship with each other is actually putting us on a very unique position. So we are enjoying this, but in the future that is going to be also very demanding because of the fact that the newsrooms are shrinking dramatically in size. Our photographs are going to be leading the headlines of the newspapers or television stations, or our video footages. So we will be finding ourselves more than we used to be in the past, leading the headlines. So that is going to change things dramatically, I believe, because news agencies are, as I said, partly, not of course totally, but partly drawing the contours or the limits or the borders of our imagination every day. The rest could be fantasy or speculation. Commentary is also part of our speculative minds. I'm not calling it out, but I'm not just downplaying the importance of fantasy as well. But what we are basically doing is yet another type of literacy. The only difference is we have to abide by the rules of the facts, and we have to stick to the framework of the realities on the ground. So that is actually helping us achieve a greater clout in the public discourse, but it is bringing us closer to the no man's land. That is actually something which will be very, very demanding and very challenging in the future, I believe, because less journalists are being found around, except in the news agencies. So, and the public discourse, just as I mentioned, is mainly driven by fear or greed. So our speculative minds could see the objects in very different views, and the disillusions of the tricks of our minds can play to us is immersive. So journalism plays and shoulders a greater responsibility to be able to take pictures, imaginatively speaking, from different angles, but not all the time we can actually stand on both sides of an object. So we have to be working together with our friends beyond the geographical or political borders to be able to take that picture from both sides. So when you actually generalize this rule and this principle, you could actually apply this to many crises, not only about taking the pictures of a military zone or demilitarized zone, but that is also taking the picture of a statement. So culture plays a great role in actually shaping our public perception or shaping the public discourse. That's true. And strategy is something, just, you know, it is, culture eats strategy at breakfast. No matter how long we discuss about these issues, still we'll be dealing with a culture which is imaginatively extending beyond our expectations. So I believe the main issue that we will be building together with our colleagues at the Greek news agency, as well as all other news agencies, we've got, politically speaking, too many countries from both ends of the aisle, friendly countries or neutral countries, or hostile countries, or no matter. But just, I'm going to conclude my remarks, but we have seen many times the benefits of actually collaboration on the ground with different colleagues and journalists from different news organizations, and we took advantage of it in making our journalism more honest, more diverse, and more powerful. So take, for example, our Anadolu's coverage starting from 2 years ago in Ukraine. So we were able to be reporting on the ground from both sides of the border. But, you know, politics were at play as well. Lots of news agencies were denying their own presence on the other side of the border. But that is their choice, and the public is the ultimate judge in their decision who did good and who did bad. But we believe we've done greatly in covering this crisis, as well as now in Israel-Palestine conflict. We are very actively reporting about the developments on the ground, and it is not as easy as it comes out of our mouths, because of the fact that too many people are heavily involved in this public discourse, that fewer people are interested in the facts. So cooperation is of utmost importance between journalists, like a backdoor in diplomacy or something, but we have greatly enjoyed such relations with our counterparts in the Greek news agency, and we believe it's not going to be easier in the future. But thanks to our past experiences, we believe we can easily overcome all the difficulties. And that is also a lesson for us too, as I said. I mean, these relations are not only bilateral relations. We have got relations as well as the Greek news agencies or the two societies. We are in constant relationship with too many countries. So that is the reason why we have supported our friends on different news agencies when they were victim of a particular issue, and as well as they were backing us when we were in trouble too. So having these principles in mind always helps us go forward and move forward. But having second thoughts on each other's, when each of us are in need of help, that is something which destroys our trust to each other, and that destroys the relationship for good. But that is not and has not been the case, particularly for our relations with our colleagues from the Greek news agency. And we believe it's going to be getting better. But in the end, as I said, we will be playing a greater role in the future, because newsrooms are shrinking, and which is a great threat. Disinformation has gone rogue, has gone wild. We have to learn, and we have to help each other learn the tools and the methods to overcome these difficulties, because it's not going to be repetitive all the time. We will be dealing with genuine crises in the future too. That's all I would like to, that's my 2 cents.
Teşekkür ediyoruz Yusuf Özhan Bey'e, Anadolu Ajansı Genel Müdür Yardımcısı. Şimdi ben Alexis Papahelas Bey'e dönmek istiyorum. Kathimerini Genel Yayın Yönetmeni. Özellikle tabii daha önce Çalıştay'da da tartıştık. Ortak neler yapılabilir medya alanında. Sizle de hatta yemekte konuşuyorken özellikle işte Türkiye'nin pozisyonu ile ilgili sohbet ediyorken bu konularla ilgili de aslında Yunan medyasında da Türk akademisyenlerin, gazetecilerin, opetler kaleme alması gerektiğini de söylediniz. Tabii ki Yunan gazeteciler ya da akademisyenler de Türk medyasında tabii ki yazıp çizmeliler ki karşılıklı pozisyonların da en azından anlaşılabilmesi açısından önemli olduğunu düşünüyorum. Bugün de siz ona dikkat çektiniz. Siz somut olarak hangi teklifleri sunabilirsiniz bize özellikle medya alanında?
Thank you. I want to thank TAV first of all for organizing this. I think Konstantinos Philis and all of us from Greece hope that we'll be able to host you in Greece for a follow-up to this kind of discussion. As I was saying before in our workshop, this is a bit of a déjà vu, but in a healthy way. About 27 years ago, our 2 countries almost went to war. About Imi Islands, what you call Kardak. And this was a war that media played a very destructive role, in my opinion. I mean, it was almost provoked by some media that went overboard with like putting flags on, islands and so on. And then I remember that 6 months after that, we organized, as the newspaper, a conference in Athens. It was the first time that we had Turkish and Greek journalists sit down at the same table. I can't tell you how productive that was, because a lot of personal relations were established that lasted many, many years. And they proved to be very, very critical in times of tension, because politicians, can do their thing and governments can do their thing, but it's very important for journalists to check the facts, talk to each other, and see what's really going on. The world has changed, though, in many ways since then, and I think that's something we shouldn't forget. It has changed in 2 ways. First of all, it's a much more scary world overall. Back then, we were living in a very unipolar world where everything was predictable. That's not the case anymore. You can see this in the Middle East in these recent days. And also, you have a lot of asymmetrical threats that are threats to both Greece and Turkey. These are threats that nobody can deal on its own. Anybody who has that illusion, I think, lives in another planet. The other thing that has really changed is the public discourse. Back then, if 2 newspapers, Millet or Hurriyet and Kathimerini or Tanea, wrote, that was the story, everybody was okay with it. It was the truth. Or if TRT, of course, reported this. This is not the case anymore. We all know that, social media is the predominant factor. We know how social media can play a very destructive role, inflaming nationalism, populism, and so on. So I think that makes our job much difficult, much more of a challenge. And I also think it makes this kind of forum and this kind of discussion more important, more critical than it was 27 years ago. Our countries have a lot of differences, clearly. I don't think that's going to end anytime soon. I think that's going to be the case for a very long time, for the next generation and the generation after that. I think anybody who has the illusion that this can be solved with a magic wand is not very realistic, let's say. But I think it's very important for media and civil society in general to play the role of a safety net. So politicians and governments can go on, they can negotiate, they can go through crises, all these cycles. But I think it's always very important to have a safety net across the Aegean, so we make sure that things don't go too low, they don't go too deep. What can we do as media? I think first of all, our role should be to explain each other's positions. it's really, really important. I mean, for me, it's, for example, very important to know what this new Turkey is all about. Because a lot of times, I come here and I have this stereotype of the Turkey of Demirel or Ecevit and all these people. This is clearly a new Turkey. It's not even the Turkey that Erdogan created in the beginning when he first got into power. And this is very important because it's very important for the average Greek to realize that this is almost another country and another society we're dealing with. But it's also very important for you to come to Greece and realize that Greece has changed in many ways. And it's also very important to realize how Greece views Turkey. What are our own sensitivities, our own fears, the way we see Turkey as a regional power. The other thing, of course, we can do is, talk to each other. And I think, again, as I said in the beginning, this is very, very important. It's very important to pick up the phone, for our foreign neighbors and talk to each other, explain how Turkey sees, for example, the Middle Eastern crisis. You can call us and find out how we see the Balkans, which is more of our neighborhood, and so on. Overall, I would say that I think our role should be, as I say sometimes, in a humorous way, the role of the fireman. It's very easy to douse fuel in Greek-Turkish relations and to sell papers or get some clicks by being very sensationalist. I think sometimes it's very important for us to sort of cool the rhetoric, explain things the way they are, and try to sort of keep calm, as I say, and carry on. In my opinion, Greek and Turkish media have to get closer. We have to think of practical ways of doing this. One way is to have exchanges of perhaps younger journalists who can come and work in Athens for a month or so, or Greek journalists will come and do the same here. We can do some joint editorial meetings sometimes, maybe a couple of times a year, sit around the same table and discuss our things. And also, an idea that I sometimes have is to establish kind of an informal hotline. When things get really tense, it will be very important, for me to talk to my counterpart in Millet, for example. We talked about this before. And sort of, get a sense of what's really going on. And sometimes maybe I'll help him understand what our perception is of what's going on. And I think that's critical. So I'll close by saying that, Greece and Turkey are clearly prisoners of geography. There's no question about it. And there's no escaping that. We're going to be stuck with each other for a long time, we like it or not. We don't have to be the prisoners of history, and we don't have to be prisoners of stereotypes. And I think our main job moving forward is, again, to explain, our countries to each other and make sure that, this moving forward will be smoother than it has been in the past.
Thank you very much, Alexis, for this intervention and your also concrete suggestions. You mentioned that also this came up in the workshop, the new Turkey, and that it's not being understood in Greece. And of course, it is also not much really understood in the West, generally speaking. And the expectation also in the Western world was this was something temporary. So, but the events in the last 10 years has shown us that it's not something temporary, it will stay there. There is a transformation in Turkey, socially, economically speaking, but also in terms of foreign policy, it's becoming much more autonomous, strategic autonomy, that what we are having this discussion here in Turkey. And of course, the problems that you mentioned between the two countries, they are frozen, and it's really difficult to solve them. It will take long years to solve them. But there is no excuse about that we don't understand the political circumstances of each other. So that Turkey is blind, or Turkish Academy or media is blind, the internal dynamics of Greece, and the Greece is blind to Turkish, circumstances. Of course, there is no excuse for this, because what is preventing us from studying each other? And that's really, I think, important what you said. Maybe some countries like far away from Turkey that we have bilateral relations, they can be blind to what's happening in Turkey. They can have a group understanding about Turkey, But this not understanding each other can feed to misperceptions, misunderstandings. this can be really dangerous, politically speaking, and that's, I think, really important. And I would like to now turn to Bora Bayraktar, TRT World Coordinator. And Bora, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. You know, half of what I was planning to talk about, you already mentioned. So even that shows us how much common ground we have. You know, it's been 30 years since I started journalism. I was going to talk about the Kardak crisis. You call it IMIA. Same thing, you know. I think the journalism which was done 30 years ago is very different, and I believe that now we have more responsible journalists. At that time, in order to make their name, in order to, you know, sell more papers, people were doing a lot of stupid things, to be honest. When I think about Turkish-Greek relations, as mentioned, there are really important problems which are beyond our field. I mean, we are just journalists and we report what is happening. We cannot solve Cyprus problem. We cannot solve, it's not our job, by the way. The problems in Aegean Sea, the situation of the minority in Greece. So a lot of problems which will be on the agenda for a very long time. It's beyond our impact, influence. We are just here to report about them. But we can report them in a responsible way. This is very important. When I think about the past, in the last 30 years, we have seen a lot of crises, but also good times. I mean, we have seen this Kardak issue, the situation of PKK leader. He was traveling in Europe. Greece was one of them. So nationalist feelings were high. So these were difficult times. But at the same time, I remember what happened in 1999, the earthquake, when Istanbul and its surroundings hit by the earthquake. We remember that Greek papers, their headlines were in Turkish. I remember when two foreign ministers, İsmail Cem and Papandreou, when they were making their meetings, when there was a positive atmosphere, the media followed the suit, and everybody in media supported that. There was hope for peace. So I think as journalists, our job is to be responsible when we report, and understanding each other is very important. As I said, you know, this is my 30th year in the business. For the first time, I am joining a Turkish-Greek journalists meeting. I've been to a lot of other similar meetings between Turkish journalists and other countries, but this is the first time I'm in a Turkish-Greek meeting, which is important, and I think it's valuable. If we understand each other, we will be probably more cautious when things are happening. You know, I studied peace and conflict resolution in for my PhD. You know, I read a lot about peace journalism, you know, journalism in, you know, helping the situation. I don't believe none of them. Journalists' business is just reporting. We don't have to, you know, try to put ourselves in a position of a politician or a minister. So I think it's better to focus on the facts and numbers, whatever is happening, and be responsible. What we can do, I think we can sometimes, you know, we can focus on positive stories as well, as much as we focus on the negative. For example, we have a bunch of good sportsmen in Turkey, in basketball. Fenerbahçe's coach is a Greek, how do you pronounce his name? Itudis. He's a great guy. Lots of good players we have in Turkish basketball league. One of the best teams, I don't know if you support Olympiakos, I don't know, but Panathinaikos is now run by a Turkish coach. So we have good profiles on which we can build understanding, we can do their positive stories. They can also be in the papers, in TVs, people are celebrating with them, when Fenerbahce wins championship, everybody is together. Also, very important football player playing for Trabzon, Bakasetas. He helped Trabzonspor to win its first championship in Turkish league after 37 years. So we have positive stories. I remember in the past there were more singers making duets together, Greek and Turkish. One of the stories which I did about 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, Burak Kut and Sakis Ruvas, they came together and they sang a peace song together. So we used to see that kind of stories more. Maybe we can focus on that kind of stories to, improve understanding, create a positive atmosphere. But as I said, we are not politicians. Whatever the situation, we have to reflect it. But there are positive stories as well on which we can build more understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Bora. Thank you very much. Now I would like to open the floor for questions. Before doing that, I would like to also kindly request and ask you to direct your questions in this framework, so that in this positive agenda framework. We can here, of course, discuss the Aegean issues, but that's not the date and place, and also the people here are not they are not their business and our business. I, as an academic, I have my opinion. As a journalist, you have your opinion and analysis. But let's try to be a little bit more productive and and create new ideas. So that would be my request to you, and the floor is open for your questions. Esra Hanım, buyurun.
Is it on? Yes.
Yes.
My name is Esra Öztürk. I'm an international journalist and part of the Council of Global Journalists. Last week we were in Moscow. We had such a collaboration meeting with ITARTASS, the official news agency of Russia. When I came back, one of the journalist friends of mine asked me, "Are you a businessman? How can you go for a collaboration meeting to another country? What are you doing? This is not trade. Media is not an area where you can collaborate with other countries. Like, if you collaborate in these terms with news agencies or like TVs, whatever, okay, TVs, they can collaborate somehow. But if you're talking about the collaboration of news agencies, it is kind of turning to be an intended, a targeted agenda, yeah. So this brings a kind of question about objectivism. Are we doing an objective journalism still, or are we doing targeted journalism? So this is actually what was asked to me, and I think this is a good question to bring to your floor.
Thank you very much. And another question, maybe from there. Okay.
It's on, right, okay. Thank you, first of all. I'm Cenk Toprak Koyun from Istanbul Commerce University, Political Science and IR Department. We are glad to be in here, and I would like to ask my first question to Sir Perdikaris and Sir Özhan. How do you see the effect of media on Turk-Greek relations on your perspective? And my second question will be for Sir Papahelas. You mentioned about the new Turkey, and for the Greek media, how did it change the Turkish figure from the past to now in the media? Thank you.
Thank you. Another one? Okay.
Hello, I'm Panagiotta Manoli from the University of the Peloponnese and Eliamep in Athens. I have a question addressed to our colleagues here, the speakers. In terms of the impact of social media in your work, do you have sometimes the feeling that what you present, what you write, has an impact only to a certain population, let's say above the age of 25 or so, and you cannot reach, all the spectrum of the population? Has this, social media has an impact on your work, and is a concern of you? Thank you.
All right. Another question. Maybe we'll have a second round, and I would like to start with our panelists. Who wants to first? You wanna respond, or okay? Yes. All right, please.
I can start off with Esra Hanım's question. Collaboration between news agencies. From where I stand, I can summarize it with 3 M's. First, mistranslations. That is something that we are struggling too many times. Not only regarding Greek language or Turkish language, vice versa, but also all world languages. Nuances in scripts could actually, this is history taught us many times, could cause really bad things. So mistranslations is the first area where we believe we can cooperate through different channels. That's not happening always on our level with Aimilios and I, or our Director General and Aimilios. It's not always happening at the C level, but we've got correspondents on site. They can speak fluent Greek, for example. Even if they are trying to deal with something which is incomplete in nature, this is something that takes up 95% of our energy. News agency journalism is always trying to deal with incomplete stories and provide these news stories on a timely manner. So translation issues is one thing. This is the first M. The second M, the mistreatment that happens both sides. So if a Greek journalist is struggling with something on the ground, they can easily get in contact with us, and vice versa. If you're trying to deal with, while we are covering a story, trying to deal with someone with who is not actually enforcing the law, but enforcing his own personal attitudes toward Turkish journalists or any journalists who are working for Anadolu in Greece, we can easily get in contact with them and try to correct the issue, or at least try to shed light on the nature of the events. That's also very helpful for us to be able to cooperate. And the last M is the misinformation. That is also very important, because what we, for example, see, or what the public see an image as a tank, could easily end up being a mock tank. So there's a difference between the two, if it's a mock of a tank or if it's a real tank. So misinformation is the most important thing that forces us to collaborate too. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm calling my colleagues, or they are calling our colleagues here regarding to protest about our headline. No, every journalist is responsible for their own headlines, or every journalist is responsible for their own editorial framework. News agencies, of course, they like any other news outlets around the world, has a limited resources, has limited reach, has limited time, or has limited money or resources, and we are constantly reorganizing our priorities. So we're not calling each other to express how we are disliked regarding their choices or priorities or anything else. No. What we are trying to cooperate with each other is to overcome these 3 M's: mistreatment, mistranslation, and misinformation. That is helping us a lot to cooperate with each other. And the second question regarding the social media, yes, it is something which especially influences the perceptions of young journalists. But Anadolu Agency has its own tools to train further our journalists, of which Bora Bey also used to be heading in the past, Anadolu Agency Academy, where we are constantly organizing trainings for not only Anadolu journalists, but we are also inviting international journalists to attend these trainings with a diverse background, with diverse professions, let's say. So young journalists are especially during the stage when they are trying to tell the difference from a sentiment and a piece of information. If it's something more related to their sentiments, they are being taught by their seniors that just because you're feeling very tense about something doesn't mean that it is actually a news-worthy story, or the vice versa. Just because you don't like to touch upon a story doesn't mean that it doesn't worth telling the public. So social media is most of the time our minds are incapable of stopping the time and dwelling into each piece of information and cross-check these informations with other platforms and sources or whatever. But news media organizations are there for this. So our responsibility is to find out the most vicious, wicked information out there, which is making rounds around people, and to overcome these difficulties by putting all the resources at our disposal. Of course, we are also limited. We cannot actually go after all the poor information or the bad data out there, but we are focusing our resources, especially targeting our friends, at the most striking pieces of information, and that is also something which we see as a new source of information for social media as well. So it's not unbreakable and it can also be counterproductive as opposed to being productive too. So we are also seeing signs of making use of the impact of social media too. If you are feeding the social media with the true information, with the accurate reporting, then it also pays off. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Well, at first, we must see what is a news agency, why we are talking about news agencies and not for newspapers or TV stations or radio stations or websites. A news agency is providing news, is the main source for other media. In Greece, we are the main source for other Greek media. In Greece, Anadolu is the main news provider for media here in Turkey. So this means that we have a duty of truth. We must, and this can make our work easier and more difficult at the same time. Why? Easier because we must not comment on the news. We must just present the facts, nothing else. And this is difficult at the same time because we have to cross-check these facts, and we aren't allowed to present prejudices, stereotypes, or something like this. For example, if we're talking about Greek and Turkish relations, a big issue for us is some statements, some official statements, some developments referring to our relations, our bilateral relations, for a non-mainstream media, both in Greece and Turkey, maybe stories, some statements made by some radicals, some people who are just adding fuel to the fire, as Alexis mentioned earlier. So our work is easier and more difficult at the same time. And that's why the cooperation between, not only the bilateral cooperation between agencies, but the cooperation between all agencies in the region, for example, in the Balkan region, in Southeastern Europe, or in Europe as well, in the whole Europe as well, is necessary because we need to join forces to cross-check, to perform the fact-checking, what we call fact-checking, because this has to do with social media as well, because social media world is a magic world, but a trap at the same time. You see, X-Twitter or just X, I don't know which is the most common name now, because of Elon Musk's experiments, is an anonymous media. You cannot trust what's going on, what's written on Twitter, for example. But at the same time, is a good source because we all understand that we're going to this new era where social media is a main source. For example, when we're waking up in the morning, we're checking the timeline, not the websites. First the timeline and then the websites. But we must be very careful. That's what we call fact-checking, that's what we call cross-checking. That's why we must cooperate, and that's why news agencies are playing the most important role on this. Because they are trying to perform this cross-check, they have to perform this cross-check, and they are obliged to present just the facts, not to add any comments, because this is unacceptable. And I think that this can help this process when we are talking about bringing one each other closer. There's, for example, in Greece, I think that there's a stereotype that the issues, the stories concerning the bilateral relations between Greece and Turkey are not so popular, but statements, radical statements, just I mentioned before, they are popular. No, we must get over this, and this can be done only with this cooperation. And I count on this cooperation not only between our agencies, but with initiatives such as the one we are all invited today and we are here today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I will respond to two questions. One is how we see Turkey in Greece. I mean, clearly Turkey has changed over the years. We see now a Turkey which is economically much more ambitious, geopolitically much more ambitious than it used to be, with a very complex relationship with the West, I would say. A Turkey where a military has a very different role from what it had 30 years ago, and I think that's important in terms of Greek-Turkish relations as well. A polarized Turkey sometimes, but overall we see Turkey perceiving itself as a regional power, and that's very different from what the case was some years ago. When I have to explain to our readers, or when I go to EV, sometimes, you know, how Turkey has changed, I always remember the first time I met President Erdogan. He was the mayor of the city, and I remember I went to his party, one of the party offices, which was in a working class district, and he saw me there for the first interview I had done with him, and there were all these old ladies from the neighborhood, and he was like ordering chai for them, and then he would like listen to the local problems. You know, you fast forward 20 years, I've seen him in Davos, where we had a conversation, or I've seen him in the palace, and clearly he is a reflection of how Turkey has changed. I mean, that image is more powerful than anything else, in my opinion. Now, in terms of the media business, I mean, clearly, I mean, the newspaper business, which is experiencing a lot of changes, a lot of ruptures. Sometimes we think of ourselves as dinosaurs. Other days we wake up with a bit of hope. I had, before all this crisis in the Middle East, we had the editor-in-chief of Haaretz, who was a good friend, and he was telling me that every Saturday he calls up his benefactor. I said, "Who's your benefactor?" He said, "The guy who brought heart stents to Israel, so my readers said, can live much longer, and my newspapers can survive." But anyway, it's a big digital challenge for us. How we move forward to this new landscape. Social media is a huge challenge in two ways. One is social media has this immediacy and has this illusion that it's like reporting, when things are happening. If you fall into that trap as a traditional media, you're done basically, because you lose your credibility and your objectivity and so on. So I tell our guys, especially on our digital front, always make a mistake on the side of caution. I rather do it, I rather you err on the side of caution rather than just follow the social media. The second challenge is, in the old days we used to compete with the tabloids. Who's going to have, the tabloids used to have these very sensationalist headlines, and we're always very worried. We're saying, what are we doing? We are very serious, we have a very objective headline. Now social media creates this pressure. This is not just us. The New York Times went through this huge debate during the Trump period, because all of a sudden they started using much more sensational headlines, because it was selling much more to the anti-Trump clientele that they were serving. And I think this is the second challenge that we have to deal with, because social media, okay, they're very useful, it's a tool of expression of, immediate participation, democracy and all this, but in my opinion, they're very destructive in many ways. And I think our role is to keep our traditional values as much as we can, and just combine this with a bit of technology and perhaps, a bit more spice, but, up to a limit.
Thank you very much, Alexis. Bora, would you like to add?
Yeah, maybe on social media, I agree with my colleagues. It's a challenge and also it's an opportunity. 10 years ago, when this Twitter and other platforms appeared, many people said journalism is dying. Now everybody is journalist, isn't journalist. Journalism will be the next level. But I think the time proved that this is wrong. Now journalism is much more important than ever, because we understand and we are the ones who cross-check. We understand the real story. If this is news, if this is a manipulation, disinformation, fake news, etc. So I think that's an advantage for us. But because of social media, polarization is getting more and more stronger everywhere. In the past, mainstream media were strong, but now we see more polarized media. Even the big news outlets now are sometimes acting like trolls, which is a big problem. We have seen it in this latest Gaza incident. Many TVs and papers refrained from using an attack, and they talked about blast and etc. So it can be very manipulative. Also, one of the problems in social media, there are lots of self-declared journalists who are stealing products from agencies, from other papers, without quoting, without paying anything, and because of the big numbers of followers, they are being treated as journalists, and they are doing a lot of mistakes, which actually makes our profession much more important and valuable. So in Turkish-Greek relations also, maybe we should avoid focusing on what these social media people are saying without checking the reality. That's a challenge, but I think it is improving our capacity as well. Now we are more aware of that situation, and I think the quality of journalism is getting better and better in networks like ours.
Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to add anything? Okay. Then I would like to thank all of you for your participation. We will have a break for coffee, and then we will convey back at 4:30 in 1 hour. So we will have plenty of time when we are drinking coffee and tea, so that you can discuss also one-to-one. Thank you.